After my husband visited the new cake shop downstairs 18 times in a month, I quietly made my way there too. The shop owner, a single mother, wore a sheer, sensual-style skirt with her hair loosely gathered in a lace hairband. She smiled gently at me. "Mrs. Lucy, you've finally arrived." The first time I met her, she called out my name with absolute certainty. Challenge and threat, undercurrents swirling. "I knew you'd come. But you're far more patient than I imagined." Devon came home from work while I was reading a fairy tale to our daughter on the couch. "Alice, look what Daddy brought you." Closing the door, Devon waved a beautifully wrapped box at me and my daughter. My daughter scampered over, only to see another cream cake inside. Her childish face was filled with disappointment. "Daddy, why did you buy Alice another cake? She's already sick of eating them." My daughter reminded me that this was already the 18th time Devon had bought a cake from the private bakery downstairs this month. I knew something was up with Devon. Under the pretext of doing laundry, I brought my jacket to the laundry room. I bent down to sniff it, a sweet, cloying scent of cake wafted from the fabric. Then I reached into the pocket, and my fingertips went limp. Pulling it out, I discovered it was a flesh pink, flower-shaped silicone nipple cover. After scrutinizing it for a long while, I realized, it seemed a wild fox from outside couldn't contain itself and had taken the initiative to challenge me. To avoid alerting it, I calmly tucked the chest patch away. I jokingly asked, "Is the cake shop downstairs that tempting? You go there so many times a month." A flicker of panic crossed Devon's eyes. "I bought these because I know you and your mom love sweets. Since you're tired of them, I'll just take the loss." He picked up the cake and devoured it in one go. Not forgetting to praise, running this cake shop alone while raising a child must be tough for Mom. "She's independent and strong, and her cakes are delicious too." I sneered inwardly. I began to confirm whether the owner of that nipple sticker was who I suspected. I bribed the security guard at the parking lot downstairs with $100. He quickly retrieved 3 months' worth of surveillance footage for me. That's when I discovered Devon spent half his time after work at the private bakery downstairs. The most recent one was just 2 hours ago. Blair, the woman who owns the bakery downstairs. I don't know much about Blair. All I know is that she suddenly moved into this upscale neighborhood half a year ago, opened a tiny home-based bakery less than 10 square meters in size, and brought along a boy about Alice's age. On a whim, I went into the study and turned on Devon's computer. After 8 years together, I knew his habits inside out. It took no effort at all to unlock the screen. Scrolling to the end, his chat history with Blair came into sharp focus. "Devon, why are you so sensitive? You even got my pants dirty." Blair sent a smirking emoji. "It's all because you're such a hungry wolf begging for it. What's the matter, can't your wife satisfy you normally?" No wonder Devon wanted to shower and change right after coming home at noon. It was all because of this. Just as I was about to log off, Blair suddenly chimed in. "Devon, when are you going to follow through on what you promised me last time?" I was surprisingly calm. I fought back the nausea and saved the chat history. Since they dared to scheme right under my nose, don't blame me for personally ruining their reputations. The next day, I went to pick Alice up from kindergarten as usual. Unusually, she was no longer as lively and energetic as before. She seemed extremely downcast. Thinking of all those online cases of school bullying, my heart instantly leapt into my throat. I stroked her head soothingly and said, "Sweetheart Alice, tell Mommy the truth, has someone been bullying you?" She lifted her little face and shook her head like a grown-up. "Mommy, are you and Daddy abandoning me? Why else would you transfer me to a new school?" I looked utterly bewildered. Transfer? How come I didn't know about this? It wasn't until I called the teacher that I learned. "You see, Mrs. Lucy, our kindergarten class sizes are fixed. For every child who transfers in, we have to optimize one child out. Recently, Devon introduced a boy to the school, so they gave Alice's spot to him and transferred Alice to the affiliated kindergarten next door. Though it's called affiliated, both the education and facilities are 100 times worse than this current kindergarten." My heart sank instantly. I pressed on. "What's that boy's name?" Andrew. His mom lives in your neighborhood too. I heard she opened a bakery. You should know her. I was absolutely furious. When I got home and saw Devin sitting in the living room watching the news, I grabbed a glass and hurled it at his head. Devin, have you lost your mind? Who gave you permission to switch Alice to a different kindergarten without consulting me? The glass of hot water exploded against Devin's temple, leaving several bloody streaks. Clutching his head, his eyes filled with disgust and contempt for me, Lucy, you're completely unreasonable. Alice already has more than enough, she's cherished by her parents and grandparents, and she's smart enough that it doesn't matter where she goes to school. But Blair's son is different. Andrew not only comes from a single-parent family, but his foundation isn't as solid as Alice's. So he needs this kindergarten spot even more than Alice does. After that argument, as if to intimidate me, Devin didn't come home all night. But because I remained firm and delayed processing Alice's transfer paperwork, Andrew never got the chance to transfer to this kindergarten. Just when I thought the matter was settled, another unexpected complication arose. One afternoon, the teacher called me in a panic. Mrs. Lucy, Alice has had an incident at school. Could you please come to the school? Hearing my daughter's heart-wrenching sobs over the phone, my heart was breaking. After rushing to the kindergarten, Alice clutched her bleeding eye and threw herself into my arms. Mommy, my eye hurts so much, wah. Alice's eyes were bleeding profusely, her face streaked with blood and tears. Only after questioning the teacher did they learn that during a paper-cutting class, a transfer student from another class had deliberately stabbed Alice in the corner of her eye with scissors. The ambulance arrived promptly and rushed Alice to the hospital for emergency treatment. Fortunately, the wound was superficial and would not affect her future vision. I exhaled, my whole body trembling, and asked the teacher who had followed me, "What's that damn transfer student's name?" Andrew. Before that kid was transferred here, Chairman Devin had given special instructions, so we couldn't really do anything to him. Her nails dug deep into her flesh. She never imagined Devin would pull strings to get Andrew transferred in. But I wasn't afraid. Next, I asked the teacher to retrieve the kindergarten surveillance footage. In the high-definition video, the chubby and burly Andrew cornered Alice against the wall, choked her with his hands, and slashed her arms and calves with a small knife. Still spouting off, "Thanks, Alice. If you don't listen to me, my mom will make your dad and your mom get divorced. Then your mom will become a bad woman nobody wants, and you'll become a wild child nobody wants either." Wah, my mom isn't a bad woman, and I'm not some unwanted stray child either. Alice cried herself hoarse, wrenching my heart with every sob. Before long, a familiar figure approached, Blair. She took her time examining Alice, then spoke with a cutting tone, "Mrs. Lucy, I thought it was something serious. Turns out it's just a little blood. Kids grow fast, and these minor scrapes won't hurt them." I clenched my fists, still wearing a smile. "Yes, Miss Blair, those who haven't had scissors stabbed in their eyes don't know the pain. But we're disturbing Alice's rest by chatting here. Why don't we take this outside? Blair thinks I'm a helpless housewife and won't dare do anything to her." So I followed her into the narrow alley behind the hospital and continued to be a jerk. "I'm truly sorry, Mrs. Lucy. I had no idea Alice was your child with Chairman Devin." Deep in the alley where no cameras watched, I slammed on the brakes, nearly sending Blair stumbling. "So just because it's not my child with Devin, that means your son can bully it? A crooked beam above leads to a crooked beam below. As a mother, not only did you seduce another man's husband, but you also incited your son to bully others and steal another child's father. What on earth are your intentions?" Even the strongest person would be mortified to hear such accusations in public. Blair covered her mouth, her eyes reddening as she feigned innocence. "Mrs. Lucy, please show some respect. You say I seduced another man's husband, do you have any proof?" Oh, she did remind me. The next second, I pulled that nipple cover out of my bag and flung it right at her face. "Ms. Blair, I'm returning your milk cap to you on Devin's behalf." Seeing she was about to protest again, I decisively grabbed my bag and slammed it hard into her eye, leaving her no chance to fight back. The studs on the bag were razor sharp, and I'd deliberately stuffed a high-capacity power bank inside. With the sound of heavy objects clanging down on her body, the woman let out a blood-curdling scream, her eyes and nose already bleeding from the blows. Her skin, as smooth and white as a freshly peeled egg, was soon streaked with dozens of bloody marks, some even running down to her neck. The accompanying teacher beside me caught her breath. They all knew I was Devon's wife, and Devon was a shareholder in the kindergarten. So when I smiled and asked if anyone had seen what just happened, everyone tactfully shook their heads. I twisted my wrist, about to continue lecturing Blair, when Devon's calm, unruffled voice suddenly sounded behind me, "Lucy, that's enough." He walked over, first shielding Blair in his arms, then fixing his gaze on me. "I always thought you were different from those women who fly off the handle at the slightest provocation. Looks like I overestimated you. Besides, I already asked the doctor, Alice only has a few minor scrapes. She's not blind, so is all this fuss really worth it?" As I screamed myself hoarse seeking vengeance for my daughter, my husband embraced the bully's mother in his arms, even complaining that I was making too much of a fuss. Seeing I didn't speak, he thought I'd conceded defeat and pulled me aside. "Lucy, you know I'm a school board member, so I can't make exceptions. Once I get home today, I'll have a serious talk with Blair. Rest assured, I'll make sure she gives you and Alice a proper explanation." I suddenly found it laughable. The man who once valued his daughter above his own life now, upon seeing his mistress, casts everything aside and becomes magnanimous. I'll be damned if I don't see how he explains himself to me and Alice. By midnight, Devon still hadn't returned. After tucking Alice into bed, I quietly slipped downstairs. The bakery, now adorned with twinkling fairy lights, held a special charm at this hour. Behind the transparent window, two overlapping figures were silhouetted against the half-drawn curtains. "Devon, I was wrong. I truly regret it. What good are apologies? Blair, your son bullied my daughter. Today, I'm going to bully you back, hard." A gust of wind swept in, causing the wind chime by the door to sway and tinkle softly. The sultry sounds of a man and woman drifted in waves, and I stopped watching. Instead, she returned home, tore up the medical report from Devon's checkup a few days prior, and silently tossed it into the trash. In the days that followed, Devon and I got along peacefully, seemingly having forgotten our earlier unpleasantness. That is, until I spotted a crowd gathered outside Blair's bakery while heading downstairs to the gym. After asking the neighbors, I learned that the store was expanding and had started its promotional campaign early. Anyone who scans the QR code to join the group can receive a discount coupon. Well, I certainly had to cheer on this modern independent woman. I created a secondary WeChat account to scan the QR code and join the group, then shared a screenshot of that cake I found hair in earlier. One stone set off 1,000 ripples. The photo quickly resonated with others. "What's going on? This is disgusting. They can't even maintain basic hygiene standards, yet they're expanding their storefront? Ridiculous." That wasn't enough. I also posted the shadows of Blair and Devon reflected in the shop window that night to the group. After simply saying "those in the know get it," someone quickly spotted. "If I'm not mistaken, I think I know what that curled hair is all about. Gross. Doing that in the prep area? If we found hair this time, who knows what we'll find next." Following the incident, Blair's bakery business took a nosedive, with customers becoming few and far between. Coupled with exorbitant rent, the shop was soon on the brink of closing. Standing by the floor-to-ceiling window, I sipped my tea while watching the bakery downstairs. I'd thought Blair would lay low for a few days, but then I noticed something was off. The afternoon snack at my daughter's kindergarten had suddenly switched brands. Only after asking the teacher did I learn that the original dessert supplier had been replaced without authorization by Blair's current bakery, at Devon's behest. I roughly estimated that this private kindergarten charges 100,000 yuan per semester in tuition. If they provided afternoon tea desserts and fruit to the children daily, the net profit for the semester could easily reach over 100,000 yuan. That's far easier money than running a home-based bakery. If someone tries to profit by stepping on me, I'll naturally block off this newly opened path. So when Alice once again brought home the little cake she'd saved for me at school, the one she couldn't bear to eat herself, I posted photos online with the caption, "Kindergartens are serving children cake products from unlicensed, unregulated, and uncertified small workshops. Who will be held accountable if health and safety issues arise?" This post resonated with many parents whose children attend the same kindergarten. While Blair was frantically explaining the situation to parents and the school and sending the product for testing, I posted the surveillance footage of Andrew bullying Alice online. Bullying has been a hot topic in recent years. And when it happens in kindergarten, at a critical time when children are forming their worldviews, parents have taken to social media to protest, "We won't eat cakes made by bullies." The apple doesn't fall far from the tree, the son bullies others, and his mother isn't much better. Meanwhile, the test results are in. Blair's shop was ordered to close due to lacking a food business license and failing to meet hygiene standards, and is prohibited from supplying baked goods to kindergarten children again. The Education Bureau, seeing the video's growing popularity, took this bullying case extremely seriously. Ultimately, under the united opposition of parents, the Bureau announced that Andrew would be expelled and permanently barred from re-enrollment. On the day Andrew left kindergarten, I had just handed Alice over to her teacher. Blair, holding her son with her left hand and lugging his quilt and backpack with her right, looked rather flustered. Seeing me, she remained haughty. "Lucy, I underestimated you. I actually thought you were just a helpless housewife." I chuckled. "Ms. Blair, I guess I overestimated you. I actually thought you were an independent woman who didn't rely on men, but only on herself." She didn't get angry either, tilting her head to look at me. "Lucy, I never meant to compete with you over Devon. What's meant for me is mine, and what isn't mine won't be mine no matter how hard I try. But you kept blocking my path until I lost my job. That's the same as forcing your husband to support me. Rest assured, I'll play along perfectly." Sure enough, in the days that followed, Devon came home less and less often. Alice looked up from her storybook and asked me curiously, "Mommy, why isn't Daddy ever home? Does he really not want us anymore?" I don't like creating those white lies. Watching the downpour outside the floor-to-ceiling window, I could only tell her the truth. "Alice, if Mom told you that Dad was going to be a dad to another child, what would you do?" She thought about it earnestly with her head bowed. "Then Daddy's dirty, and I don't want him anymore. I only want Mommy." I affectionately stroked her head. "Well, if Alice doesn't want Daddy, then Mommy doesn't want him either." Late into the night, the rain had stopped. Devon returned from outside, carrying the sweet scent of cake into the bedroom. He didn't turn on the light, just sat motionless at the foot of the bed. He seemed to be making up his mind, yet also pondering how to broach the subject. I paid him no mind and drifted straight off to sleep. The next morning, Devon was still sitting at the foot of the bed, frozen in the same position. I stretched lazily, fighting back nausea, and deliberately snuggled into his arms. "Honey, when did you get back?" "It's all because I slept so soundly." His eyes were bloodshot, and his complexion had a purplish tinge due to diabetes. "Lucy, I'm back to be honest with you." "Huh?" "Last night, I was with Blair the whole time. Let's get a divorce, I've fallen for her." After Devon uttered those words, I'd been trying to figure out what expression would be considered normal. Should I cry, or scream hysterically? But in the end, I just gently stroked his stubble. "Devon, I've done worse than this." "What?" "Alice and I have been waiting for you to come home. You know we can't live without you. Break it off with her and come back to us, okay?" I forced out a few tears, trying to make him believe I loved him so deeply, so desperately, it felt like life and death. Faced with my tears, Devon finally wavered. Men are like that, they always relish the sense of superiority that comes from having two women torn between them. Perhaps out of guilt, Devon hasn't been running to Blair's bakery these past few days, instead spending several times more time with Alice and me than usual. This left Blair feeling like a cat on a hot tin roof. After all, she was currently unemployed and broke, and with the uproar caused by Andrew's bullying of classmates, getting him into any kindergarten was proving incredibly difficult. Now she's just itching for Devin and me to confront each other and get divorced, so she can move right in and become Devin's wife just as she's always wanted. Seeing that Devin hadn't responded to her for ages and they'd barely met face to face, she taunted me again. "Lucy, you're the kind of woman who can't live without a man, right? Can't you tell Devin can't stand living with you anymore?" Just imagining Blair's furious face across from me makes me want to laugh. "Blair, it's not that I can't live without a man, it's that Devin can't live without me. I'm telling the truth. Lately, his health has been deteriorating. Not only does he frequently get up at night, but his body has also developed varying degrees of swelling. I suspect it's the result of neglecting his diet and abstaining from sex since he started seeing Blair." Blair, who had been kept in the dark, snorted coldly. "Then you didn't hear how Devin described you to my face? A doggy plaster? A sticky cake? Or just a pet lapdog that only knows how to wag its tail and beg? Women are always like this, mistaking a man's indifference toward another woman for deep affection toward themselves. So her provocation leaves me cold. After all these years, how could I tolerate someone sharing my husband's money with me? I can't divorce him either. That would mean I'd lose my claim to Devin's estate and get only a pitiful share of the scraps. Anyway, counting down the days, it was almost time. When Devin once again proved incapable in bed, I comforted him with my usual smile. "Honey, you're just too tired. Get some more rest and you'll be fine. Alice's kindergarten has a parent-child activity coming up in a few days. We'll be traveling out of town for a few days. Take good care of yourself. We'll try again when I get back." Devin nodded gratefully, noticing nothing unusual. My departure gave Blair the perfect opportunity to strike. Before leaving, I deliberately installed hidden cameras throughout the house. After settling my daughter at the hotel, I opened the video feed on my phone with a calm expression. Without a doubt, Blair showed up less than half a day after I left home. Perhaps she'd decided to go all out. Today she was dressed sweetly charming yet sexy, clutching a fragrant, soft little cake in her hand. "Devin, guess what I put in the cake?" Devin couldn't resist the temptation, pouncing on Blair like a lion and pinning him to the sofa. "Today we're not just eating cake, we're eating you." Soon, the sound of stumbling footsteps echoed through the room. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. As the final second ticked away, the surveillance feed captured the woman's shrill scream. Devin suddenly began foaming at the mouth, his limbs convulsing violently. Estimating the time was about right, I turned back from the hotel and headed home. When I pushed open the door, Blair was sprawled on the couch, disheveled and trembling like a sieve. Devin's eyes were rolled back so far they could have hit the moon. I stifled the urge to laugh, covering my ears with both hands and letting out a shrill scream. "Blair! What are you doing in my house? What did you do to my husband? He was perfectly fine, why did he suddenly collapse?" A barrage of questions left Blair flustered. Her face flushed crimson as she protested innocently. I don't know. He just, suddenly did that." The commotion quickly drew a crowd of onlookers. While everyone was pointing and whispering, I snorted coldly and quietly called the police. Police quickly cordoned off the scene. I was sobbing uncontrollably. "Officer, my husband was perfectly fine just half an hour ago when we left home. I never imagined he'd forget his wallet along the way. When I came back and opened the door, not only was this strange woman tangled up with my husband, both of them half naked, but he'd also been knocked unconscious by him." "Wha?" The police officer offered me some comforting words, promptly called an ambulance, and summoned Blair to the scene. Upon arrival at the hospital, Devin was rushed into the intensive care unit. After 3 hours of emergency treatment, he barely clung to life. But the doctor still regretfully informed me, due to untreated diabetes, Devin has now developed uremia. Compounded by consuming hormone-laced aphrodisiac desserts that triggered a cerebral infarction, he will likely never walk again. This is devastating news. The parents-in-law who had accompanied them nearly fainted upon learning their son had developed uremia and cerebral infarction. After the police investigation, Blair was detained for 3 months for trespassing and intentionally bringing emotionally triggering sweets to the patient. Meanwhile, Devon was discharged from the hospital. Upon realizing he would now undergo dialysis every week for the rest of his life, forever with a crooked mouth and squint, confined to a wheelchair, his attitude toward me visibly improved. Just before getting into the car, I asked him, "Honey, can I take over managing that plot of land in the suburbs?" Devon's breath caught, and he struggled in his wheelchair. "No. I can't. That piece of land is a prime piece of real estate, and naturally he wouldn't want it to fall into my hands so easily. But now I hold the knife and he's the fish on the chopping block, there's no way I'll let him call the shots." The next second, my grip slipped, and the wheelchair carrying Devon suddenly tilted off the steps. Devon was thrown completely out of the wheelchair, landing face first on the ground. "Oh dear, sorry honey, you're just too heavy. I'm only a frail housewife, I hope I didn't hurt you." Devon, of course, understood perfectly. After helping him up from the ground, he shot me a hateful look before stammering, "I've come to my senses, Lucy. Money is just a material thing. As long as I can convince Mom and Dad, that piece of land, you decide what to do with it." I was so happy I almost started humming. My in-laws were getting old, watching their son suffer from an incurable illness while sharing a bed with another woman. They were terrified that if I refused, I'd take Alice and run away. So when I suggested renovating that plot of land, they agreed without hesitation. "Lucy, you know we've always loved you. As long as you don't leave Devon, it's all yours and Alice's." I quickly declared my loyalty. "What are you saying, Mom? Devon is the love of my life. Nothing, not illness, not that scheming woman, can ever tear us apart." My mother-in-law nodded approvingly. And so, I acquired the land and began developing a luxury retirement community. 3 months later, Blair was released from prison. I hired a lawyer and took her straight to court. After all, if she hadn't seduced Devon, how could he have suddenly suffered a stroke? In the end, Blair was ordered by the court to pay Devon $500,000 in compensation for emotional distress and medical expenses. If she can't come up with the money, Blair will soon be subject to enforcement. And this $500,000 is precisely the total amount Devon has spent on her during this period. With no other choice, Blair sold off the dessert shop downstairs and dipped into her life savings to scrape together the $500,000. After paying the debt, the haughty look vanished from Blair's face, and she prepared to take her son back to their hometown. On the day of the final move, I happened to run into mother and son downstairs. In the pouring rain, Andrew cried and struggled, "Mommy, I want to thank Uncle Sia. I don't want to go back to the countryside, I want to stay in the big city." Blair crouched on the ground, soothing her son as rain drenched her completely, leaving her looking utterly miserable and wretched. As she looked up, she spotted me standing nearby and let out a shrill laugh. "Lucy, seeing us mother and son so wretched and down and out must be a real kick for you, huh? You know perfectly well I'm innocent, Devon was already sick." The glass door slid open at my command. I stepped inside, leaving the mother and son outside. "So what? Alice and I are innocent too. Didn't you and Devon hurt us just the same?" Since then, I haven't seen Blair or her son again. After several months of treatment, Devon has recovered quite well. He's fully conscious and can barely string together coherent sentences. Seeing me standing before the full-length mirror changing into my evening gown, he rolled his wheelchair over. "Lucy, all dressed up like that, got an event planned?" Ever since Devon's accident, the company has been leaderless, lacking someone to steer the ship. I'm about to attend the company's new shareholders meeting. Meeting his gaze, I casually made up an excuse. "Lucy invited me to see an art exhibition, and I figured I'd expand my network while I'm at it. There's a watermelon in the fridge I bought just for you, don't forget to eat it." Seeing me say this, he visibly relaxed. From its inception to where it is today, the company was built entirely by Devon. It was his lifeblood and the culmination of his life's work. He would never hand it over lightly. Upon arriving at the company, I immediately announced the unfortunate news of Devon's illness. I then presented the plans for constructing the convalescent home. Everyone understood the significance of that plot of land to his company. Now that it's in my hands, those shrewd shareholders all get the message. Once they saw the writing on the wall, they switched from calling me Lucy to President. After entertaining company shareholders late into the night, I kicked open the door in my high heels, slightly tipsy. Alice had already been put to bed by the nanny. Only Devon remained seated in his wheelchair, still in the same position I had left him. The sound of the door slamming made Devon freeze in his tracks. His eyes were bloodshot as he glared at me fiercely. "Lucy! You didn't go to the art exhibition today, you went to the company, didn't you? My assistant told me everything. And besides, you knew all along I had uremia, why did you deliberately keep it from me?" Devon was reasonably sharp, but he'd woken up too late. Besides, he posed no threat to me now, at best, he was a half-dead mascot. So I had no intention of hiding anything. After all, the shareholders' meeting is over, and I'm now the company's chairman. Even if a few sycophants try to stir up trouble, it's nothing more than a last-ditch effort, utterly futile. "Devon, what can you possibly do to me?" I walked over with a smile, rubbing Devon's stiff shoulders. "Honey, since you already know, why ask me? I thoughtfully left your medical report on the coffee table. You were too eager to rush downstairs for that sweet treat and didn't notice it." In the dim light, a cold gleam flashed in Devon's hand. It was a sharp paring knife. I admired the beads of sweat on his forehead and the bloodshot veins in his eyes as I spoke slowly. "Honey, what are you doing with that knife? That's really dangerous." I pushed the wheelchair slowly to the huge floor-to-ceiling window and opened it. The night wind rushed in, howling. Looking down, there was nothing but a bottomless abyss. "Devon," I said, "do you think it would hurt a lot if someone accidentally fell from here?" The man in the wheelchair trembled all over, his voice hoarse. In the deathly silence, you could even hear him swallow. "Lucy." His cold fingers pressed against my arm. I was just thirsty. I wanted to grab the knife to cut some watermelon. "Don't read too much into it." Clang. The knife in Devon's hand fell to the floor with a sharp clatter. The next day, the sun rose as usual. As always, I pushed Devon out onto the balcony to soak up the sun. Alice, watching cartoons in the living room, looked at us and suddenly giggled. "Mom, you and Dad are just like Tom and Jerry." I laughed too. "Then who's the cat and who's the mouse?" She threw herself into my arms. "Of course Mommy's the cat,